Hi, this is Jay and Dave, and today we're going to talk about life after Chartio. Many of you out there are trying to grapple with the decision of what to do in just a few more months when Chartio goes end of life. So we thought we'd share with you who Knowi is, our Knowi architecture, give you a live demo, discuss how we've automated migrations for many of our clients and customers, and lastly, how our pricing can meet you where you are. Knowi itself was actually founded in 2014 in Oakland, California by two data engineers who had many of the same challenges that you're dealing with today. Since then, we've created a next-gen architecture that's used around the globe by many of the Fortune 500. And if you take a look in the forums, many of your fellow Chartio users and peers are excited about the way in which we've actually taken them like for like, as far as their existing features, up-leveled them to a higher level of platform. And in order to get you there today, our friends over at Hotswap can take your favorite charts and visualizations and migrate them for you semi-automatically. Lastly, I want to talk about our price matching policy. What we're doing is we're extending a special offer to you where if you engage with us in the month of October, we're going to do our best to try and match what you're currently paying with your Chartio installation. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Jay, who's going to dive into our actual demonstration. Jay?
Thank you, Dave. Hello, everybody. So first, I'd like to start off with a high-level Knowi architecture, and goes back to what Dave mentioned about why Knowi is different. So traditionally, the approach most companies take is, you take your data from various sources, you do ETL on that, put that into some sort of a data warehouse of some kind, and then you plonk in your BI tool on top. We have a different approach. If you've done the work with the data warehouse, we can plonk on top of that data warehouse and do everything else you're used to, like you've done in Chartio. But if you haven't, or if the data is in a data warehouse or in multiple different databases, we have this concept of a data set as a service. So I've drawn up this this diagram here. Hopefully, you can all see this. I was supposed to do this on a tablet, but that didn't exactly work out to plan today. So let me start off on this data set as a service layer first. Traditionally, how people are used to doing analytics is, you take the data from various sources, do ETL on it, plonk it into a data warehouse, and then have your BI tool on top. You can do that if you've invested the effort into doing your data warehousing, but we also take a different approach. So let's say you have data in your data warehouse, you have NoSQL databases, SQL databases, and APIs, and so on. Cases where you really don't, it doesn't make sense to put it into a data warehouse, necessarily. So we have this concept of a data set as a service where it allows you to federate out these queries into the underlying source, right? So if you have data in Snowflake or Redshift or BigQuery, etc., query those. You can combine that with your SQL data or API-based data, NoSQL databases, and so on. And what you end up with is a virtual data set that you can use. And this virtual data set can be real-time against those underlying sources, or we can run it behind the scenes and store the results into what we call an Elasticsearch, a little bit like Chartio data store. Except that it can store millions of records or tens of millions of records, and you can do them incrementally and so on and so forth. So this area is pretty sophisticated. So once you have these data sets, one of the key differentiators between, whereas in Chartio, your query and visualizations are tied together, so you end up with sometimes a lot of these duplicate queries and visualizations. The approach we're different around this area is these data sets, you can reuse them. So a single data set can be reused by multiple different visualizations, can be used for alerts and actions and so on and so forth. So that's an area I can go over while I go through the live demo as well. So a couple of key things on top of this data set as a service layer. You can create dashboards and visualizations right off the bat. We have this concept of a search-based analytics, which is the ability to just ask questions as if you would do Google search on your data and get answers back and create visualizations and analysis right on top of your data from the data sets you have access to. You can create alerts in the form of simple threshold alerts. You can also do more advanced anomaly detection and conditional alerts and the like. And any of the things you do in Knowi, you can drive them into Slack, Teams, webhook APIs. You can consume these data sets from your APIs too, if you like, as well. And we have some machine learning capabilities as well, where you can combine your current data or historical data and do predictions using machine learning as well. And one of the other things I would mention that sits on top of the search-based analytics feature is the ability to ask questions from Slack and Teams as well. And this ties in your collaboration tool that you use today with your data, where for ad hoc questions, you can ask questions in Slack, Teams, and so on as well. So we'll cover that as well. And with that, I'm going to get back to my computer here. And let's start with the data engineering layer first, and we'll go up to the non-technical user flow as well. So from the data sources side of things, we have support for all major SQL databases, data warehouses, NoSQL data where you have native integrations into, and also anything with the REST API and files and cloud services as well. So let's take an example where, take MySQL as an example here in this case. So setting up the data source here. And this detect schema, it allows you to basically do infer keys and then do join mappings and so on. So it helps non-technical users figure out, where the join keys are. It's like what's in Chartio today. So if you do that, say, if you do the edit schema, you can see what are the tables. If you want to infer the join keys, let it do its thing, save those. And then you can start querying that database. So in this case, let's say I want to get the couple of fields from this. You can also just write in the query here directly as well. Cloud NQL is for more advanced transformations. It's a bit like the Chartio pipelining feature, except that you do this programmatically here if you want, or you can do that right on the grid, either with drag and drop or adding additional functions on top. So just to summarize, I've connected up into a MySQL database, ran a query on this, and got some results out. And this result is what we call a virtual data set you can basically track. So this can be either a real-time query. So you can make this a direct query. And if you're used to doing runtime parameterized queries with filters and Chartio, then you can do the same thing here too. The way to do that would be you specify what your filters are, etc., and then configure this as a runtime parameter right in the query itself, and it will appear on the filter side of things. So the other, so in database joins, so within the same database, these tables will be highlighted based on the join mappings we have. So there's a key against customer table, and whereas there's no link across these. You can also do multi-source joins. So if you have data in Google Sheets, and if you have data in your SQL database or an API of some kind, just hit that join icon, specify where you want to grab the data from. So I'm going to call into a completely separate database. And then you can join either as inner join, give it a type of join, or if you leave it empty, it's going to essentially do a union of the two. I'm going to use this customer key here. So now you end up with total bounce by customer and all associated customer information. And again, this is like this virtual data set concept I was talking about. And you can do post-processing, pipelining of transformations, etc., right on the fly too. I'm going to make this give this a little bit more meat and give us more data here. So let me just make sure I've got this right. Yes. Call that some JData set, and I am going to save this, just make this non-direct as well. And I have my data set I've created. right? And then from here, I can basically start creating visualizations right off the fly. So let's create a few visualizations on this model or virtual data set. So one of the things I want to know from this data, for instance, would be get me the total sent by message type. And two options here. You can do additional transformations on this data set, either by dragging and dropping. So if you're, business user, you can share the data set and they can go to town on it safely. So, or you can basically say, simple, type it in plain English. So if I'm interested in total sent or total sent by customer, for instance, just put that into a visual, put that into say a pie chart. Save that. Create that, not add to the dashboard yet, maybe create another one out of that same data set too. So let's do total sent, maybe total clicks by customer weekly, something a little bit more complicated. So get total sent, total clicks by customer on a weekly basis. Let's put this into a bubble chart. So I want the total sent to be the primary y-axis, the secondary clicks to be the sizing side of things, and we've got the bubble chart sorted. So now we have a couple of these visualizations we've created on the same query / data set, right? And then let's say want to add this back into a dashboard. Let's create a new dashboard. These data sets that we've just created, or the visualizations we've just created, let's put those in here too. And we have a dashboard from those from the data we created from MySQL, from a couple of different MySQL databases in this case, and a fully formed dashboard where you can basically do rollover filtering based on user if you like, send it via email or Slack, and as well as do, if you want to do things like anomaly detection on this chart that we've created, you can set up an alert right there and then, be it a threshold, or if you set up an anomaly, maybe on a weekly basis for the total sent by customer, what does that look like, right? So this would be an anomalous behavior for this customer. We will do machine learning behind the scenes to trigger an alert on that as well. So we've talked through connecting to a data source, joins within the same data source, as well as joins across data sources, the virtual data set concept and the data set as a service layer, as well as we've played around with the natural language stuff to create some of these visualizations. A couple of quick things on the a few things on the natural language side of things. You can basically ask questions across all your data sets on a specific data set. You can also take any of these dashboards or this Google search like interface and embed that as part of your application as well. So in terms of embedding, we have a couple of different mechanisms how you can embed. One is similar to how Chartio, if you're doing embedding within Chartio, using Chartio, using JWT, we have a similar mechanism for that, where you can encrypt the parameters and the tokens associated to it. We also have a more fancy single sign-on embed, where a user in your system maps to a token in ours. So if you need cases where you want to track the user and what they do and give them the ability to create dashboards and things, you can do the same within Knowi Embed as well. And then within Slack, you can basically just ask questions against the dashboards you've created, like the one I've just created here. I can ask a question to grab specific specific information for a customer. So if you're going into a meeting and then someone has a question specifically about a customer, an org ID or something like that, you can just type that in and we'll get the results back within Slack right away. You can also ask questions in plain English too. So for instance, if I type in something like this, here, for instance, by source. Excellent. So I'm asking a question here that's got a bunch of keywords. It's going to go find the right data set based on the keywords that I've specified, and then give us some results back, right? So this is a way to do ad hoc analysis right within Slack on the data sets you as a user have access to. So you can download the data, you can explore and validate it. So natural language can be expensive. To make sure that we've done the right thing, you can hit that simple button. That will put you right back into the app to make sure that you can verify that we've done the right thing for this set of keywords, essentially. So if you look at how it's put together, it's saying that the owner, which is a value in one of the data sets, is this person that's greater than last year, and group them by dimension of a source, lead source, and by the month, and get you that data right off the bat. So that's the ability to get your collaboration environment, and it's step towards making your team more data driven by asking questions instead of having to come to a data engineer to get a report sorted just for their specific use case. And a couple of quick things before we close. There's a whole machine learning option here, the workspace here. You can create your own machine learning models and so on if you so desire. And in closing, I just wanted to talk about how the migrations, automatic migrations that Dave mentioned earlier through Hotswap. So the way they do it is that you have a browser plugin that when you're connected into your Chartio account, allows you to basically export all the assets from your Chartio, and then they will import that into Hotswap, and where you can select the dashboards and charts to migrate. And then the ones that cannot be migrated, they'll flag them as such as well. And then that will plonk over your assets from Chartio into Knowi directly. With that, I will hand it over to Dave to do the final wrap up.
So in closing, we wanted to make sure that you understood that like for like, we can match many, if not all of your Chartio features today. In addition, we can up-level you with natural language processing, Slack integration, and Teams integration to get you to where your customers and your company want to go tomorrow. We invite you to reach out to us via email. I'd love to hear from you at david@knowi.com, or you can just go on our website and request either additional pricing information or your own individualized demo that would speak to how your data sources and your charts can come into the Knowi infrastructure as soon as possible. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and interest. And if there's anything that Jay or I can answer for you, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Make it a great day.